3, 2, 1.
Check it out.
Yo,
What up? What up? What up?
what's going on?
This feels a little strange, as in I don't get to hear the intro. I don't get to hear any of the sounds that are being played. So this is a little funky for me. So
Well, that's because you said you didn't want to wear no headphones.
right, and you are the producer.
That's right.
What up? What up? What up, folks?
What's going on, everybody?
How are we doing out there today?
Let's get on some horn.
I can't hear it, but I'm imagining it.
That's right, right there.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. As you all know, our usual, what we do at the beginning is we like to shout out those that are watching. Mm-hmm. So if you are brave enough to go ahead in the comment section and just give a shout out, we'll love to shout you out. And I see my girl, Adriana, saying, hello, family. Happy Sabbath. What up, girl?
What up?
Oh man, to the 18 people out there
That's
in all of social media, who else is watching us other than Adriana? We know that you're watching, but who else? Who else is watching? So while we were waiting for those people to come in the chat. Oh, okay, Matt, what up? He said we got horns.
That's right, we got
What up,
horns.
Matt? Oh my gosh, that's what's up. That's what's up. Good to see you in the chat. Good to see you in the chat. Mm-hmm. How was your week?
My week was good. My week was, it was good. It was good. No complaints over here. Just relaxing, just chilling, and just living it. I'm enjoying this time off. I'm enjoying time with the family.
Good.
So that's always a good thing. How was your week?
My week was pretty chill. It was pretty good for the most part. Also did a lot of chilling for the first time in a very long time. So that felt really good to do that. Just kind of segueing a little bit into the current events for the week. Okay. G-Man, cool 23. Love you guys. Congratulations on the deal. Okay, all right.
That's what I'm talking about. Desiree Walcott.
Desiree Walcott. What up? So glad to have you joining us this tonight. I'm about to say this evening, but it's nighttime. But talking about a little bit about the
Like, I need to come closer to you.
for real. Why you so far away for
I don't know.
But anyway, when we heard about Carly. What's her
Carly
name?
Russell.
I'm about to say Jeffers. I'm not sure why. Carly Russell, the turn of events, all that transpired. I know that that's something that's pretty hot in terms of current events that we've been watching. What up, Sandrew? Okay, Sandrew is back. Happy Sabbath.
Yes, sir.
Remember Sandrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Carly Russell, and then I feel like this is the piece right here. This is the part right here that I was just like, yeah, we not moving to Florida. For those of you that are in Florida, I'm just really interested to know, like, how do you guys reconcile, resolve that piece about what recently happened? You want to update the folk?
Yeah, so as you know, Florida, Governor DeSatan signed this crazy bill into order that's going to change the way slavery is taught in schools. And basically, the gist of it is that slaves benefited from slavery.
Jesus.
So they learned and mastered tools because obviously these slaves that came from Africa were savages. They had no idea of civilization and how to govern themselves. And so by becoming slaves, white masters were able to educate the slaves, and they learned skills that have turned them into productive participants in our society. So that is what Governor DeSatan has put forward. in Florida.
Mercy God. I don't even know what to say.
And so I got
honestly.
nothing for that but, oh my God.
I can't hear it, but I can imagine he's like, wow.
Right, that's right. Oh my God. Look, I'm going to change this so that you can hear what's going
It's
on.
okay. It's okay. I don't really need to, honestly, but I know that that's another hot topic inside of the that's happening in our current
Society.
events. There it is. Adriana said, and this is why CRT is being banned because of the foolishness.
Right. But you know what? I think I always try to see opportunities in this. And I think it's a great opportunity for Black people to start opening schools, for people of color to start opening schools, private schools, for us to start reinvesting back in HBCUs and to start, to be like, look, have y'all school, have your whack knowledge. Because I do believe that all of this is going to backfire on them. Like, I think it's going to backfire on DeSatan and Florida and all the people that voted for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sandra says that new way of teaching is the lies they told themselves. And that's, I guess, it helps them to sleep better at night, apparently. Because that is like the gall, the unmitigated gall.
Unmitigated.
To even have something like that, like, written and followed through and passed as a law. Is it a bill or is a law? It's a law.
So they changed the way education is going to be. Florida. I mean, DeSatan is on this. Like, I think he's trying to be. Whoever is his campaign manager is really awful because I think he's trying to be worse. He's trying to be as extreme as Trump to try to beat Trump. I think. And I think he feels like the more overtly racist he is, that's going to pull Trump followers over to his side. When he does not have what Trump has.
No.
He looks like an imposter, a copycat, a phony, just straight up whack. Now he might end up being the Republican nominee, but we're not there yet. But it's just real silly, real sad, and it's more exposure of truly what this country is, right? Like truly the leadership of this country.
Yeah.
In certain states.
Yeah.
So we have no choice but to call him Ron DeSatan.
Mercy Jesus. But yeah. So that's what's been happening in our world news tonight. So Jamie and I realized that now that we are on a podcast, right, where we're streaming to platforms like a podcast, we decided that our show is way too long.
Right.
When I'm listening to a podcast, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes the most, essentially, but for the most part, you're not trying to listen to a whole bunch of stuff, right? And then get into the meat of whatever the conversation is. So we're trying to fine tune things. So we're going to now transition our time into what you all are here for, essentially, as we have posted that we named this week's talk as
Unlocking Childhood Trauma.
Unlocking Childhood Trauma.
So we jumping in right now.
Yeah, we have to jump in because we already did what we needed to do, preliminaries, or just kind of talking. But now we're just gonna jump right into it.
It's so different, like to be.
I know.
So scheduled.
I know, but maybe I'm the producer.
No. I'm the
you're
producer.
the co-producer.
I'm the producer. I the producer.
Okay. All right. So.
Unlocking childhood trauma. What made you come up with this topic?
What made me come up with it?
Yeah. Why did you decide that you felt like this was a good topic to talk about?
I decided? Or it was a conversation?
All right. It was a conversation.
Okay. All right. I thought you were about to like...
Well, why did you agree to dive into this topic?
I think it is important to talk about the fact that, your childhood... who you are as an individual. You just don't show up as an individual. You show up with all the things, right, that made you who you are today, including trauma, right? And sometimes that trauma happens in childhood. And sometimes, I know for me, I did not anticipate, practice, read about at that time, 15 years ago, on like, how does childhood trauma affect relationships or affect your relationship, right, with people or just with your spouse or your significant other. So those are things that I don't remember talking about or hearing other people talking about in my space, in my circles. And so I just think it's so important to acknowledge the fact that childhood trauma can affect your marriage or relationships in general, for the good or for the bad, for the worse.
Yeah, I think childhood trauma just affects everything.
It does.
I think, I've been seeing, it's funny. I don't know if it's because I typed in maybe childhood trauma on my phone, but the algorithms picked it up. And so now I'm seeing a whole bunch of posts about procrastination and how procrastination is something that you develop when you were a child. Like don't because you procrastinate for a reason, because of something that occurred. But as you stated, like, all of us have some sort of trauma, some sort of issues that we have normalized, and that we bring that into the marriage. Because like you said, when you get married, you come with more than just you.
Yes, talk about that part.
You come with a whole lot of other stuff into your marriage. And that, I think maybe sometimes we don't know, one, or maybe sometimes we think marriage is going to fix it, or marriage is going to be the cure.
Like marriage heals all things,
right?
But it doesn't.
Right.
It actually, I think it shows up even more. Like, it reveals even more of the childhood traumas, because especially when children, I think even before children are brought into this space, that I can feel. Let me speak for myself. I felt like the effects of, things that I went through in my childhood that affected the way that I interacted with you, or the way that I responded to certain things you would say that would trigger me. And I'm like, why is this triggering this way? Like, why am I responding this way to him? And sometimes not acknowledging it, not even being aware enough to say, yo, why am I feeling this way? Am I feeling this way because I remember experiencing this in my childhood? No, I'm usually like, I guess this is just who I am. This is just, whatever. So I think it's just so important to acknowledge the trauma and to see how much it can affect your relationship and your marriage.
Right. Right. But, the thing is, how do you, or when do you realize that the trauma is affecting you and your relationship? Like, at what point? Like, I feel like for us, we didn't acknowledge it maybe until maybe our 10th or 12th year into our marriage.
I think it was like drops of acknowledging that, yo.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, you do that?
Right. You do that. Why you like that? What is happening? Like, I'm not sure, where's this coming from?
Right.
And then having those conversations to be like, yo, it's coming from, oh man, this is Jamie's and I's conversations usually when that happens. Be like, yo, come to think about it, right? We'll always say, come to think about it. I remember when I was, and this happened, and, and you start to link and create that, like, oh my gosh, that link to your childhood and in your current situation, so yeah.
Right.
Okay, sorry. Let's go to the comment section. Adriana says, didn't realize my triggers either. Sharon says, none of us get through childhood life unscathed. It's so true. That is so true. Sandru, Lalani says, marriage magnifies. I guess magnifies those traumas. Sandru says, as a child, I was molested by my female babysitter. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Oh, no horns for that.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
For sharing that with us. And it took me 30 years to realize I realized I used as sex a drug you use sex as a drug to cope with pain and hurt. My God. My God.
Yep.
My God. Lilani said, me either. It has been eye-opening for me. Matt says, trauma has been normalized in some of our relationships.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
God.
And not just marriage, normalized in everyday life, normalized in our communities.
Jesus.
You know, like I was having a conversation with someone and I was just saying to myself, like, sometimes we are triggered or we respond positively to like negative things, to violence. Like you ask most black people in the hip hop community what their favorite movie is Scarface, right? It's like one of the most violent movies out there. But you know, we respond affirmatively to the preacher yelling at us. Kendrick Lamar has a song called Fear, and how we just respond. And so sometimes, like to sexual trauma or even to abusive trauma, there's, if you grew up with abuse, I remember we used to talk about like there's some people that feel like if she's not hitting me or he's not hitting me, then they don't love me.
Yeah.
Right. And so that trauma becomes normal in relationships. But yeah.
But getting to the part or the piece where when you come with more than yourself, I think that key is so important. Not until I would say, what would you say year where we like really started to like really acknowledge, like have real conversations. I'm not saying that we didn't have real conversations. Jamie and I always had real conversations, but it feels like sometimes when you're dating, that dating process is almost like you're really skimming the very top layer of who you really are, right? When you're in marriage, it's like layers are being peeled, right? Peeled away, pieces by pieces, moment by moment. But it's like when you're in that dating stage, you're literally just right here. For us, it was. Some people may be diving in and tearing those layers away from the very beginning. But for us, even after dating 7 years, we were very much still like here,
Yeah. I think it's a lot of, what's the saying? What is it? One thing, come see me, see me, versus come live with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, versus, so I think in dating it's come see me, right? So we see each other. We see for the most part, we see the best in each other. We see the nice in each other.
Almost like we see what we want to see.
We see what we want to see. Sometimes you see, and then some people ignore red flags, right? And then they get married hoping those red flags will go away. But come live with me, you're a whole different person.
It's a whole different
But
level.
I think for me, when we started unpacking our childhood and unpacking what marriage looked like for us growing up, it was when I think whenever I would do something and then I would finally get to the place and I'd ask myself, why am I like this? It's not me saying, why, what did you do or why did this? It's literally asking myself, why am I like this? Why am I the way I am? And I think now that we're in a culture, I believe, or we're in a place where mental health is taken more seriously, and there's so much exposure and access to podcasts and videos from people talking about what they've been through, which triggers it, like, you know what? Me too.
Right.
That happened to me too.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember when we were okay. So let me say this before I get to there. So my parents divorced at the age of, I was 11 years old. And prior to that divorce, I would say that my father and I had like a typical father-daughter kind of relationship. I adored him, and it seemed as though he adored me as well. And for the most part, our relationship was was cool. Like he would always take me, like if he take me places, right, with him. He would ask me, I remember he would ask me to sit down and pick out his gray hairs and all the things, right, I remember doing with my father. I would say from, let's say 8 and younger. So when my parents got divorced, it was a lot. It was a lot. It wasn't just, hey guys, we are just deciding to get divorced and we're chucking the deuces, and we're going our separate ways. That wasn't the case at all. There was just so much intertwined in that piece, in all of it. And so as a result, my relationship with my father became strained. It became strained. And I'm a little bit nervous, and I'm usually never nervous in this space, but I guess I'm a little bit nervous because I don't talk about him often. A lot of people be like, a lot of people don't even ask. Be like, so we always see your mother, but we never see your father. Like, what's going on? And so, I'm a little bit nervous because this is a space, right, where we've created where I can come and be vulnerable. And we've created also a space. I've created a space within myself of seeing the bigger picture, that this is not necessarily, it's about me, but it's not about me, right? There's a bigger picture. But in any event, getting back to whatever happened with my father, and just, there's just so much to peel away. But essentially, as a result of feeling abandoned and feeling like not wanted in that way, or having feelings or emotions around, why would he do what he did, right? And all those things, I became, I think I became attached. Like my relationships of pattern was like attached. And also I used to almost like do this pushing and pulling of sorts, right? When I was in relationships, as well as having a very high, what is the word I'm looking for?
Threshold.
Not a high threshold, but I would literally just always put my walls up because I don't want to get close to anyone. I don't want to get close to, boys or men or whatever like that, because of that abandonment that I felt as a child. And so when Jamie came in the picture, I used to do stuff to him, right, that used to annoy the mess out of him. And he always used to be like, yo, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Right. And I'll be like, no, I'm not doing this for no particular reason. I'm just doing it just to do it, not realizing I was doing it because it's almost like I was like, let me test him to see if he responds in this way, that means I'm just going to be like, yo, I'm out. Or if he responds in that way, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, you're the best person that ever came into my life. Right. And so I just created those barriers, right? Because I did not want to, be abandoned or feel abandoned. And I did not, I wanted to make sure that he said what he meant that he said. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I know I just said a lot, but yeah.
Yeah. I want to respond, but I think it's important for the listeners to know that I came from a divorced home as well. Mm-hmm. But I think the difference between your story and my story is that even though my father and my mother didn't get along, and my father, they split, I think at the same age, around 10 or 12. I think it was between that time. My father is still very, very, even to this day, very active.
Yes.
Very, accessible.
Yes.
So if I need him, if I call him, if he don't pick up, I know I'm going to get a call back. Mm-hmm. Very accessible in regards to my father. Same thing with my mother as well, but we talking about fathers here. So father, but the same thing too, people don't see him unless you are someone who knows me for years. But if you're somebody who's just meeting me, especially too when I'm like transferred to different churches and things like that, you always see my mother. You never see. So people that see or know me, they assume his dad is not around. But my dad is very present, but just not around. But while you were talking, I don't know if we've ever unpacked like our stories and how you would do the push pull thing with me.
Mm-hmm.
But why would I stick around for the push pull? Like, why would I? Because it was
rough.
Yeah.
It was rough. I'm not gonna lie.
Yo.
And I know what's interesting is that we didn't share this in our story because we just shared the, like, when we got together, you know, like kind of talked through that piece, but we never really like told the folk about about what I used to do to Jamie.
Yo. Bruh.
Yeah.
Like, it was rough. Like, it was rough to the point where I used to think you were crazy. I was like, yo,
I used to think I was crazy too.
Yo, she crazy. And then I think that we got to one point where I tell you, don't call me, don't talk to me, don't even look at me. I don't want to see you. I don't know what you did, but I had reached I was like, nah, I ain't dealing with this. I ain't dealing with this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And not knowing that was me. That was a part of me, right? That I was really trying to fight and say that he is not like my dad. Like, he's not like my father, right? Like, he is, or maybe he is. I'm sorry, I stand correct. Maybe you are like my father, and now it's almost like I'm for, like, it's crazy, honestly. Yeah. It is, because it's almost like I'm willing you to be like him, even though I don't want you to be like him, right? I'm still very much trying to prove to myself, like, yeah, maybe he is like my father. It's just weird. I can't really explain. Of course, there's a lot of immaturity in that as well. That I was dealing with, but
you know what's interesting? Two things I would say this. One thing that's interesting is that I don't think I ever confided or spoke to anyone about our tumultuous era when you were doing that. I don't know. I don't think I ever said, because I think if I spoke to somebody would have probably told me, like, bruh, yo, you need to completely leave that alone. The second thing is, I think another part of the trauma, so like, you're at that age, what were you, like 20s? We're in our 20s. You're at that age and you don't know how to process it. So let me say my prognosis or my diagnosis for it was in videos and in the music that I listened to. So, you know, like, even like soap operas or whatever, right? So you would think like, yo, the relationship is like this, but, you know, I gotta hold on. I gotta be a strong dude. I gotta be there for my woman. I gotta show her this. I was the opposite of the gangster that's like, yo, bump these girls. You know what I'm saying? I was more like Jaheim, or, you know, like, New Edition. You gotta
like,
love
you were
it.
the R&B.
I was the R&B, Carl Thomas,
yeah.
you know, something like that. So I think like that, because there was no one there to unpack that stuff for me.
Yeah.
That I felt like I had to just continue to push through it and to fight through it, and kept, you know, dealing with it while you was wilding.
Yeah, I was. Because again, I think at that point in time, I think in that point in time when we first started dating, I think there were moments where my father would come back. When I say come back, like, I would allow him, right? Because I was just like, yo, dude, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I'm good. And so I think he was in and out, right? There were pockets of him in and out of my life. And so it's almost like what I was craving from him, right? In turn, I turned it in a really sick way of craving that attention from you, which is, as I'm talking about it now, it really sounds crazy, but I just think about when you don't have anyone to process it with, one, right? Because it's not like I sat on a couch or I was talking to my friends about it. It was just something that I internalized and just kept it right here. And I was just dealing with it on my own. And so I think that, you know, during that time, during that process, like, while we were dating, like I so wanted my father to be who every little girl would want their father to be, and knowing at that point or accepting the fact that he was no longer, or he's not able to give me what I felt like I needed at that time because of whatever was happening in his life. And so it was just very, very icky.
Yeah.
It was yucky during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt like while we were dating, I felt like I had to be there to save you or to help you get through this. Because here's the thing. I knew let me not say I knew who you were, because we're still getting to know each other. But I knew that you weren't who you were. You weren't the person that you were showing me, like how you were acting. Because you were literally like a Sour Patch Kid, like sour and then sweet.
Right.
So when you would show the sweet side, I'd be like, yo, this could work.
This girl
and then
can
you
do
just
something.
turned into the Sour Patch Kid. And I'm just like, bruh, what did I do now? Like, all I did was eat my bread before I ate the bread before the meal came out, or before you did. You would like flip.
Yeah.
I remember one time we were driving, you were like, no music. And
Yes.
I
You
like
were
to listen.
You were like, yo, I want to listen to music. And I was like, no music. Yeah, it was some crazy
Because you were
times.
literally like a Sour Patch Kid. But I think for me, I internalized, I think with a misunderstanding of Christianity, and also within myself, that I had to save you, or I had to stick around because the God that we serve never leaves nor forsakes. He's always there with us, through us, and all that other stuff. And I think also too, with me growing up in a home with a strong mother, a strong female presence, where it's only women in my family, and and just longing. I don't know what it was, if I was longing, but just really felt like, I had to be strong, and had to show you. I had to prove to you that I'm going to be there no matter what.
And I saw that, and I felt that. That's why we're sitting here essentially together, because I saw that from that from that piece, right? So just understanding the dynamic of that trauma of not having my father present in my life, right? Not having him present in my life, and how much it affected me. And I didn't know how to process that, other than in this relationship, this is what I feel like I should do in order to almost like, one, make me trust you, two, make you work for, like, not letting it be like a walk in the park, but having those thoughts and emotions around you not having you just not showing up, but you have to kind of show me, right? You have to prove to me, because I feel like my father did not do that. So like, you're a man. So I was also putting on you what I felt I was lacking.
Right. But on the flip side, I think on the flip side, it flipped, right? Where there was no more pushing, there was more pulling, because then I started wilding out. Right. And then you, I'm sure if you spoke to somebody, or somebody gave you, or even when you talk to when the older you talks to your younger self, you say, you say, I should have left Jamie long time ago. Right. Because how I started acting. Well, I was like, I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to commit to this. The whole blaming myself. I do everything wrong. I ain't cut out for this, cut out for that. And, it's those pieces of childhood trauma that affects our decision making.
Yeah.
It really affects my decision making, and how, I'm conflict avoidance, and not really knowing how to talk and express myself through things, ignore things, avoid it to make it just go away. And then, hopefully it'll get better, or like, try to make it up and things like that. So,
but your perspective in terms of like, okay, knowing that your parents also divorced, your father was present, right? If you needed him, you knew where exactly to find him. He was consistent. He wasn't doing a whole lot of empty promises. Like your father was, like, you pretty much knew for sure that you can depend on him in that, in just about any and everywhere, any and every way, right? Essentially. So how do you think like that, what you just described about the avoidance and all that stuff, like where did that, your dad was present. So where do you think that came from?
I think, so as you asked that question, I think what I realized or what I learned from my father was he never gave up, right? So he never gave up on me and my sisters. So I think partly maybe that can be part of the reason why I decided never to give up on us. And then the other thing too with him is that if I call him, he'll show up. So I think I learned those things I think there's a lot of things, right? So I think there's one in our relationship that I would always show up. I'd always come, like I would always, like, even after we had like an argument, I'd still come, I'd still be there. If you needed anything, I'll still help you out. Like, Jamie, I want the red and black patent leather Jordans. And I think we were at like a little rough time, but I still was like, all right, let me go do this. Let me go find. So I think one, seeing he never gave up. Two, he showed up. But then three, also, I think my dad does do avoidance where he disappears, where he just, he's better off like, yo, you don't gotta see me. I don't want to be seen. I'm good. But when I show up, you're going to see me.
But in terms of your relationship with him.
Oh, my relationship
with
like
him? He doesn't avoid you, right? Or you don't in that way,
I don't
right?
feel like he avoids me. I don't know if
you better hope not.
I don't know if he be ignoring calls sometimes, but I don't.
He doesn't.
No, I don't get that. I don't get that feeling.
That's interesting. That's good. Interesting. That's good. Interesting. Avery says, I remember asking my then boyfriend if it was worse to have an absentee parent or a parent in the home that was emotionally absent. Yeah, that. I mean, I think that's a whole nother conversation as it relates to
present but absent,
right?
Or absent and present.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is better or worse. I think they're both equally traumatic.
Yeah,
they're both equally hard to do because the person that's in the home where the father is absent, mentally absent, like his body is there, but you could see that he's not engaging. He's just absent from the home. Like a person looking at it would be like, yo, at least your father was like, you kind of knew for sure, like, you didn't have to see him and you have to engage with him and you have to do all of that. Versus like for me, I'm like, I don't think having a father in the home that's not present is good, right? I don't think either is good. I think that's essentially what I'm saying.
But that story of present but absent is a common story amongst PKs, pastors' kids. And, I think
just in general,
in general, but I know that I'm just speaking from what I've known and what I've heard is that sometimes as pastors, we get so caught up in saving the world and saving other people's families that our families, we just probably just assume that because we're the pastor and the wife is committed that our kids will be okay. But there have been many stories of where it's like, you can say you love your family, but your schedule doesn't say that, right? Or you can say that, yo, I'm working hard. This is why we could live in this house. This is why we drive this car. This is why we go on vacations. But to your kids, it's like, yeah, all those things are wonderful, but you not being there. So, I don't know. I think that would definitely have to be somebody who can, who lived that to answer that. But I would assume it'd be like, yo, you present, but you absent. You just taking up space.
Yeah, I think they're both awful to live with. Either way, Matt says the father male presence account for a good amount of our social and emotional intelligence. You are right about that. And I know for me, I lack that a lot.
But you talked about that in our dating relationship. How has that affected you in our marriage? or do you feel like it's not? It's not there anymore.
I think that I'm not the same person in terms of healing as I was how many years ago, right? I'm not that I feel like because I've begun that healing journey, that journey towards healing, I think I can I'm a lot better. I think dealing with it in our marriage is a lot better. It's a lot better because now you kind of understand, right? You kind of understand because you've seen it for yourself. I think that's an important part. I think you have seen it for yourself. You've seen the inconsistency. You've seen the pain for yourself. And I think that in and of itself, now you can, when I say certain things, you're just like, I got you. I completely understand because I experienced it for myself. So in the beginning of our marriage, like when we used to talk about my father and, talk about this constant like pulling of trying to understand like, yo, God, like, why can't I be that woman that has the husband, not the husband, the father who I can go to and talk to certain things about? Like, why can't I be the daughter that confides in my father and talk to me about like, yo, how do the mind of the mind of a man works, like do all of those things, right? And so even when we were dating, like I did not have that essentially. Thank God for my brothers, especially Duel, but like I didn't have that. So I, even in marriage, like still yearning for that thing that most girls want from the person that helped to create them, and constantly just not having that, I think it affects, but as I said, it's not as, it doesn't affect it as deep as it did when we first got married. What happens now is you understand why I respond that way, or you now understand like, yo, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, my childhood, and for probably a lot of us watching this, and from a male perspective of not witnessing what a healthy marriage looks like. It was a lot of learning on the fly. It was a lot of learning. Like, I don't know what a respectful conversation between a husband and a wife looks like. Like a mannerly conversation, right? I don't know what that looks like. So, in marriage, like being married to you, those first couple of years, it's me. I think like my understanding is do the opposite of everything you've seen. Right? Like at the opposite of everything that you witnessed in a marriage, just do the opposite. And that's how the marriage is going to work, which is not necessarily always true.
Right.
But, it has worked. We here 15 years.
Right.
Right. So, I think that trauma and abandonment, I think for me, one of the most heartbreaking things was seeing my parents split.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like that's a heartbreaking moment for anybody who is old enough to see that or to know what's happening. Like that's a heartbreaking moment. And I think as I became an adult, I vowed to never have our kids experience that or us to experience that. So everything is, and so now I think maybe another episode is talking about how much of yourself do you deny so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's another deep episode for
Right.
sure. Yeah, that's another, episode. Norma Hunt says, I had to forgive my father and then myself to let my husband off the hook, to navigate to work my marriage. We both were committed to stay together. My father was absent from the beginning. Got to meet him at 11 years old. Wow. Adriana says, y'all making me scared that me and my ex-husband just scarred our son.
I don't know. I don't know. Well, we can't speak to it because we don't know what happened. I'm just thinking for me, I just remember that night. I remember that night he moved out. I remember, I will never ever forget it. Never ever in my life forget it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Adriana. I really appreciate you sharing that in this space. I'm not a therapist at all.
Facts.
Honestly. And to be honest, if I were to talk about it, it'll just be based on my lens. But that's something that you should definitely talk to someone about, processing through what that looks like for you in a healthy way. I think that would be the best thing that I could say at this time for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also like process it. Like today we did a processing moment with our youngest daughter, Amber, right? In that conversation. So I think sometimes if the child is old enough to, I think, have that conversation, like, you know, let me know what's going on. How do you feel? Because that's something I didn't have. Like, nobody spoke to me.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, nobody was like, it's done. That's it. Go see him once every on weekends.
Yeah. Yeah. Mia Naomi, thank you for this, Mia. She says, love this. Good conversation. Take care while watching. This can be triggering on many levels. Yes. And we probably should have put on a disclaimer of sorts saying this may be triggering, right? Because childhood traumas they come in different forms, shapes. Sometimes, you know, even though we may have experienced divorce, you know, our trauma is different, right?
Yeah.
You know, there are just so many different interweaving things that came with our trauma individually, right? And you are right. It does definitely is triggering.
Shoot, it's triggering me right now.
Because that thing, we probably should have had a therapist on this thing with us so that we can kind of like not normalize it, but just, I don't know, set the stage. Well, but I think what our focus mostly is like the fact that this trauma does come up in marriage, that just because you're married, it does not heal your trauma. It exposes it and it makes it... It's like you're doing the work on yourself and you're also doing the work with each other, right? So you're always doing all the things that require working towards wholesome and, you know, whatever. All right.
But I think it's good to let the folks know that this is not a one and done. Like, this is a 3-part series.
Right.
So we got part 2 next week. And we got part 3 for the last week. So we've mapped it out so that we could, you know, do a 3-part series so that we're not unpacking everything right now.
Right. Matt says marriages are an system for growth and wellness. It requires intentional cultivation. I love that, Matt. Yes.
Yeah.
He also, I think he's responding to Adriana. Essentially, he says, divorce is traumatic, but healing is always in reach.
That's right.
I love that.
That's right.
Norma says, yes, those wounds cut deep. Adriana says, so it's like circumstances regarding him leaving and not leaving. Okay. All right. I'll read that after, probably not on. Mia says, therapy for Black girls, therapy for Black men. And she also put a a link there. She said it's her specialty is in healing traumatic events. That's what's up. Go ahead and plug yourself in, girl.
For real.
Renee says both spouses come to a marriage seeking to heal their inner child. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. And so I think there's expectations and experiences in marriage. And sometimes our expectations don't match the experience that we want. And that can add to more trauma. Right. And there's always the conversation of, dealing with your trauma before you get married, because sometimes you attract what you know, right? You begin to like a magnet, you start pulling what you know. So yeah, this is heavy.
Yeah, Kim says it's not easy to carry luggage without handles. Mercy, that's a word.
Man, y'all dropping bombs.
For real, yo.
I need the Funk
My
Master
God.
Flex bombs.
My goodness, that is a whole word. Jesus. Mercy.
Dave said, ain't nothing wrong with the long form podcast. Keep the live video long form and the podcast more concise.
Okay. We'll try to.
Yeah, we knew we new to this. We new to this.
We trying to figure this out.
But we true to this. You know what I'm saying?
We trying to figure this thing out.
Right.
But as Jamie said, there's going to be a part 2 next week, and then the following week a part 3. Because we really want to dive deep into practical ways that we have navigated those traumas, those childhood traumas, as effectively as possible. Yes, we've made mistakes along the way. Yes, we have oopsed a whole lot of times, but for the most part, we do want to get to diving a little bit deeper into, all right, I do have a trauma, right? I am traumatized. Now, how do we work towards something together in this healing process? It's so funny. Quite often people will be like, people will say, man, you are so vulnerable in this space. And I'll tell them, I'm vulnerable in this space because when I speak, I'm speaking from a healed perspective, right? Opposed to just kind of like shooting stuff out of my mouth, just because that unfiltered stuff gets real ugly real quick.
Facts.
So it's filtered in a sense where I'm coming from a healed space, because I don't want to talk on something that I have not necessarily healed from, or I'm not in the process of healing. I don't want to be raw and be like, yo, and start, saying stuff that I don't need to say. But I definitely think that, in marriage, like when we first started dating, and even when we're courting, or whatever that word, courting sounds so, I don't know, archaic.
Yeah.
that how these traumas, sometimes you dive right in. Some of you probably dove right into your marriage, where you were very much upfront about your trauma, and you had the language around expressing what those traumas were and how you can positively. I feel like maybe if we had therapy before, like if we had counselors, right? Like we did that, how that would have affected our dating piece. But anyway, I digress.
You saying the pastoral counseling before we got married wasn't?
Well, pastoral
wasn't enough?
Premarital counseling is not the same as
right
counseling.
It's
because if pastors that give counseling,
some of us are not trained
and not certified.
We are
right?
not trained therapists,
but we be acting like. But that's
sure
another
do.
story.
And we be taking money like we are too.
Mercy, Jesus, that's another story. But Naomi says yes. Before marriage, dealing with trauma. Not everyone is built to endure. Yes. Mia says fear of abandonment and fear of rejection. These two buckets is what we operate out of until we seek Jesus and therapy. Yo, you hitting us with the gems, Mia. Yes, I love that part of the fear of abandonment and fear of rejection. And sometimes how that how that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like how
Dictates.
that, excuse me,
Dictates.
how that, I'm sorry, did I just like cough over there by you? I'm supposed to cough on this side, my bad.
But we are one. You like my R&B bumping into the mic? And
Not
everything?
really.
You say you don't like my R&B? Mm-mm. Hater.
I'm not hating.
Hater. Let me do the, oh my God.
But yeah, I don't even know what you're playing. That's not even right. But are we at our hour mark? We're almost
We're
at our hour mark.
we're
What
at
is
our hour
this? I don't know what this is.
This is it.
I have to inhale, exhale
This is
because
it.
there's just so much to talk to you all about. But guess what? You're going to have to come back next week because next week we're going to be talking specifically about
Picking up the pieces.
how we pick up the pieces.
Part 2.
And how have those things affected us in our dating and in marriage? And what are the patterns of dating? What happened? And how you push away, but you keep close.
So we're talking about that fear of abandonment.
Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection as a result of childhood traumas.
Yeah.
Mercy, Jesus.
Yep.
Listen.
Yep. And then part 3, we're going to talk about the solution. So stick with us on this journey. Come along with us. Come with your questions. Hit us up during the week. Hit the subscribe button. Do what you got to do.
Okay.
Listen to it during the week or whatever. And also, please share it. Follow us on Spotify. The podcast is up there. And also check out our Instagrams because we're going to be posting every now and then. So, we thank y'all for rocking with us. We're trying to get a little bit more professional with this.
Okay,
I think
I like
we're doing a good
the,
job. You like little graphics?
I like
there,
little
right?
graphics on the bottom. Okay,
Like
you
little
showing up
graphics.
and
Yeah,
showing
yeah.
out.
Oh, yeah. Let me give myself some horns.
I can't hear it, but I'm just going to assume that it's there.
It is there.
That's what's up. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So,
But if you,
Oh, sorry. You had something else to say.
yes, it's 59 minutes and 46. Is that 59? I can't even see y'all.
Get your glasses.
Yeah, it's right here.
Wear your glasses.
I can't. The lens is scratched up and it really messes my eyes up.
Fix your glasses.
Okay, I will. But I hope that you guys have a wonderful Sabbath. Hit us back next week. We'll be back here next week. And we can't wait to share more in this space. And as usual, we love you guys and have a happy Sabbath.
Peace.
3, 2, 1.